It's been over 2 years since Dark Gallifrey started at Big Finish Productions. This is the fifth series. I still don't have a bloody clue what the hell Dark Gallifrey is. I don't want it to stop though. Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mr. TARDIS, and today we're talking about the latest, the fifth installment in Big Finish's Dark Gallifrey series, a series about Dark Time Lords trying to uncover the secrets of apparently a Dark Gallifrey. And like I said, this is the fifth series, and we seem to be in a weird alternating pattern when it comes to the quality of these series. And I should say the subjective quality, my personal opinion. I really liked Morbius. I thought that was a really strong opener. Wasn't a big fan of the War Master. Really liked Missy. I think this, for me, is like the high benchmark of the range so far. Didn't like Master, exclamation point. So that means I must have really liked the Meddling Monks, right? Well, I did. I loved this one. So yeah, the alternating pattern of quality, the up-down nature of the subjective quality of the Dark Gallifrey series, this one holds true. So what is Dark Gallifrey, the Meddling Monks? So this is a trilogy of box sets written by John Dorney, and this features, as you can probably tell, the Meddling Monks. We've got the Monk, played by Rufus Hound, and we've got the Nun, played by Gemma Whelan. And something has happened to them recently that involves the Blinovitch limitation effect. You had these two different incarnations of the same Time Lord, they made contact, and they've been thrown into what appears to be some sort of weird alternate dimension, and the dimension in question takes the form of a BBC Radio 4 comedy, with a studio audience, with a theatrical sense of dialogue, and a status quo element to the plots, where the Monk and the Nun are inside a Radio 4 sitcom, getting up to strange shenanigans, and at the end of every episode, the credits roll, and then we go to another situation the next week. The status quo has been restored, and it starts with these two wanting to try and buy a house, and then they spend all of the money on the house, and they have to try and start a business in Monkey House and Monkey Business, the first two episodes of this series, which takes us to part 3, Monkey Nuts, and part 4, Monkey Magic. This is about a dinner party that's happening, and then a magic talent show that they enter in order to try and raise money, but even though they're meant to have no money and no jobs, how are they able to afford having dinner guests? How are they able to keep paying their mortgage on the house every single month? It's this strange acknowledgement of the situation that they are in as their nature as sitcom characters in this strange, timeless alternate universe, which even reflects with the cast members who are played by all of the same actors. You've got John Finnemore, who's playing different versions of a character called John. You've got John, John. You've got John, Jon. You've got Jean, who's the French John. You've also got Simon Kane playing different versions of Simon, and Carrie Quinlan playing different versions of Carrie, with the third box set, The Meddling Monks Part 3, starring Colin Baker as the Sixth Doctor, because that's the thing about all of these different series. Each of them features a different incarnation of the Doctor. Master, exclamation point, featured the Eighth Doctor, Missy featured the Seventh Doctor, the War Master featured the War Doctor, Morbius featured the Fourth Doctor, and the Meddling Monks features the Sixth Doctor.
Even more of me!
So even though Dark Gallifrey, The Meddling Monks features 6 different episodes with their own different titles and their own different opening credits and closing credits and everything, but you can basically chalk this up to parts 1 to 5, and then part 6. So I'm going to basically talk about this box set in totality, as opposed to going part 1, part 2, part 3 with their own separate independent reviews, because basically parts 1 to 5, you can talk about those in one lump group, in my opinion. So yeah, he's a monk, she's a nun, they're both gonna have so much fun. That's the genuine opening music theme by Kevin James. It's absolutely brilliant, the theme tune that they've got for this Radio 4 sitcom. It genuinely is formatted like this. This is one of the most meta Big Finish releases that I've ever heard, where they have their own opening idents making fun of the Love of Stories tagline, where they have trailers for upcoming Big Finish productions, but done in its own sort of weird, meta comedic spin. And while you may think that John Dorney spent his lockdown watching WandaVision on Disney Plus and that's inspired this box set, It appears that John Dorney's inspirations for this box set went way before WandaVision was broadcast, and I believe him. John Dorney does have a history working for BBC Radio Comedy. I believe that's where he got his start in writing, so this is in his DNA to write a story like this. It's the most John Dorney thing ever written. So you've got the monk, you've got the nun in their own sitcom, and in Monkey House, they're trying to blend into humanity, so they decide to buy a house. They are really competitive with each other, the monk and the nun, so they go off on their own separate paths to try and buy this house, and they end up getting into weird comedic skits where they end up inadvertently bidding against each other for the same house, and then they run out of money bidding for the house, so they have to start up their own business in Monkey Business, and who's going to come up with the best business idea, and then hilarity ensues. And that's the first 5 episodes of The Meddling Monks.
The first part is surveillance. We need to go undercover in this time and place.
Yes, where exactly is that? And when? I know we've said 21st century England, but that covers a lot of ground.
It's not important. What's important is that we need a base, somewhere we can blend in, become part of the furniture. We need to buy a house, so settle back and watch the master at work.
The master? You didn't tell me that psychopath was here.
No, I mean me. I am the master.
You are? Goodness, you were me only a few minutes ago. Wait, does that mean I'm the master too? Well, I know there are theories, but I've always thought our personalities were completely different.
No.
What about the war chief? Am I him as well? Is there anyone I'm not?
Pleasant company?
Well, let me give it a go. I am the master, and you will obey me.
I really won't.
You will always let me win the board games and buy me ice cream whenever I ask. And you will agree that I am the superior incarnation in every way.
The craziest part about Dark Gallifrey the Meddling Monks is that midway through Monkey House, I found myself genuinely laughing, like full-on cackling while listening to this, and I'm not laughing at just the premise or the irony or, thinking, haha, this is so meta and I'm so above this, No, I was genuinely laughing with it at the jokes and the wordplay and the situation. There's a 2-minute bit from Rufus Hound trying to figure out what the Meddling Monk's human name is that had me guffawing in the car. I don't want to give all of the credit to Rufus Hound here. Gemma Whelan is also really, really good in this box set as the sort of straight persona, whereas Rufus Hound is the more, the bigger personality, the one who it's more fun to watch the downfall of the monk than it is the nun, even though it's funny for both of them. Part of this is that I have heard Rufus Hound as the monk removed from the Dark Gallifrey series way more than I've heard Gemma Whelan as the nun. Gemma Whelan played the nun in Missy Series 3 for Big Finish, a box set that I have not listened to, unfortunately. There is one other series that I have listened to Gemma Whelan as the nun in, but if you know what story I'm talking about, I'm not going to say because it is a spoiler for that story, it's not indicative of a Time Lord persona. Their first appearance is not necessarily reflective of what that performance and what that character is going to be like moving forward. That's all I'll say. So because I know what Rufus Hound as the monk is like, I'm able to see how differently Rufus Hound plays the monk in this Radio 4 sitcom than he does in other monk box sets. Whereas with Gemma Whelan, unfortunately, I don't quite have that luxury. I think she does really, really well in Dark Gallifrey. I just don't know how different this version of the nun is to how she's played it before, and that's on me, I'll cop to that. But regardless of the performances, and the cast acquit themselves incredibly admirably, I think John Finnemore is brilliant across the entire box set. Simon Kane, it's Simon Kane. I bloody love Simon Kane. Of course he's funny, of course he's great in all the roles. I think Carrie Quinlan gets sort of like the least amount to do, especially as the box sets go on. Her role sort of diminishes as it goes along, and I think that's a little bit of a shame. Her main standout is in part 1, and I think she's really great there, but I think it's a bit of a shame. The further on in the story you go, the less Carrie you get. I think she kind of drew the short straw here, unfortunately. But what carries the Meddling Monks is the script and also the really brilliant sound design, where you do have the canned laughter that punctuates all of the jokes, or in that case, the audience, the studio audience in The Meddling Monks, or I should say The Middling Monks, that's the name of the in-universe show, The Middling Monks. I'm singing the theme tune. It's the sound design, it's the break in the illusion when you have the nun hearing the audience laughter every so often and just not knowing what that is, or the monk who is wondering who he's talking to, who is behind the fourth wall that he's breaking when he thinks aloud. And there's the really interesting placement of the laughter as well, because yeah, it's really uncomfortable when something not funny happens and then the audience laughs, but then it gets twisted around into when something genuinely funny does happen, but then it's not punctuated by the laugh. And it really makes you feel that. Like, it leaves the listener really in a sense of unease. It leaves you on edge. And it's a really interesting feeling for a Big Finish box set. But the style of comedy that we're dealing with in The Middling Monks is more akin to like the Dick Van Dyke Show. It's more akin to like One Man, Two Governors. It's the really old-fashioned, really arch aspect of comedy. It's more like Tommy Cooper than anything. And for me, I'm a layup for that. I really enjoy that sort of comedy, but the fact that the cast play it so well and the sound design really, really goes for it and commits to the bit, you really feel like the actors are putting their full body behind the performance. You can imagine that they're on a stage performing this. They're playing this really archly. They're playing it to the cheap seats at the back as well. Just the way that they enunciate and the way that they project, like they are performing a radio play, and an old-fashioned radio play. It's not about the immersion for the emotions for the listener. It's about the immersion of the setting itself. It's a complete tonal shift. And as the monk and the nun become aware of the contrived financial situations, how the two don't have a job and need money, but they're able to do multiple shopping trips and get takeaway when they need to get a steamed hams meal in Monkey Nuts. And the supporting cast of characters grows even when the number of actors stays the same. You've got Simon the ventriloquist in Monkey Magic, and it's a really funny role. And you even have this vicar called John. I kind of wish they'd done more with the idea of the villain of the monk and the nun being a vicar. I kind of feel like that was a bit of a throwaway detail to keep the theming together, but John as the nun is really, really great. I think that while Rufus and Gemma are brilliant, John Finnemore kind of ties the cast all together. He is, of course, a veteran of radio plays, but he's also a really strong villain role as well, when you do have this big arch comedic character with this made-for-radio voice. And then what he does with that voice to leave the characters and the listener off guard, like, yeah, it's a really strong performance. It's one of the best guest performances that I've heard this year so far from Big Finish. I don't do, like, Big Finish awards or whatever, but if I did Best Supporting Actor, John Finnemore's making the shortlist. And after a comically truncated Part 5 in Monkey Puzzle, which sort of brings the reality of what's happening bearing down on the monk and the nun, we get to Part 6, Monkey About, and I love the blurb here. What's it all about? Well, it's a Big Finish finale, so there's bound to be explosions and chases with perhaps a starry cameo and a threat to all life on Earth. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, this is very meta. This knows what it is, and I think it's really fun that it plays with it. Not only playing with the idea of the format and the genre that it's in, but also playing with the different Doctors, and I think having Colin Baker as the 6th Doctor be the Doctor for this particular Dark Gallifrey series, it's a great fit, not just because Colin Baker had his audio renaissance with Big Finish, out of the original lineup of Doctors when Big Finish started in 1999, or started doing Doctor Who audios in 1999, Colin Baker, out of all the Doctors, was, in my opinion, the one who hit the ground running the fastest. But also, Colin Baker is the radio Doctor. You've got Slipback. I think Colin Baker is the first Doctor to have a BBC radio drama while he was the incumbent Doctor, Slipback in the mid-1980s, and this has a really affectionate callback to Slipback in it as well. So yeah, it makes sense for Colin Baker to be the Doctor that meets them up here.
I mean, in America, you'd have 22 weeks to find your way. Test things out, see what works, but it's a much quicker turnaround. In England, like it or not, decisions are made here. Now, in episode 6.
Did somebody say 6?
Oh,
yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, no. You know, I don't want to seem ungrateful. I do appreciate the appreciation. But while I am perhaps entitled to a round of applause everywhere I go, for it to actually happen does feel a trifle unusual.
Doctor, thank goodness you're here.
I'm not so sure about that. Not this one, anyway.
Oh, would you look at that? Dumb and Dumber.
While Colin Baker, the versatile performer that he is, does adjust his performance to meet the demands of the different formats of Dark Gallifrey the Meddling Monks, I feel like maybe the Sixth Doctor could have had a smaller role in the story, maybe like a walk-on 10 or 15 minute role, as opposed to essentially becoming the third lead in this climactic story in this series. But, you know, I'm always happy for more Colin Baker. I think that he's really, really great here, and he's got a great interplay with Rufus Hound and Gemma Whelan. The three have really great chemistry with each other, and really great timing. They're terrific together. But I think that maybe when you get towards the end and it has to start paying off all of these ideas and paying off all these themes, I don't think that it needed to have the world-ending stakes that it gives it. Like the idea of this this entity that's trapped them here. You know, if it gets free, it will destroy the whole world. I don't think it needed that. I think it kind of like diminishes everything that's going on in the story to basically just take the subversion and say, actually, in the end, it's just going to destroy the world if you let it free. I think the stakes should have been more personal. I think if you just kept it to, this entity is trapping the monk and the nun, and that's just the stakes. It's just that, as opposed to, if you don't stop it will destroy the world. I kind of think that lessens the impact somewhat, and it kind of brings to question like the logistics. Like, okay, so how is it going to do this? And that when you start adding those layers of questions and trying to find legitimacy in the setting, it kind of like loses the magic, I think. It's over-explaining, which means that for my money, The Meddling Monks Part 3, while still a very strong end to the story, and I'm interested in where the monk and the nun go from here as characters or incarnations, and if they continue as a pair, or if they tell their own different stories, or they have their own different series. I think that Part 3 is the weakest of the three, but that's mainly because it breaks from convention the most. Or when I say breaks from convention, it becomes the most conventional, because parts 1 and 2, genuinely exceptional, genuinely funny, hilarious side-splitting comedy with moments of unease that really tie it all together. I strongly recommend the Dark Gallifrey Meddling Monks trilogy. I really, really do. If you're not a fan of stuff like WandaVision, if you listen to Radio 4 BBC classic comedies and it's just not your thing, fair enough. But if it does sound like it should be your thing, if you like the idea of like meta Big Finish, if you listen to Big Finish and you think it's a bit too conventional and you want something different, this is the trilogy for you. Highly, highly recommended. And, you know, the streak continues from good, bad, in my opinion. I still think Missy, with its brilliant character work from Roshana Patel and its implementation of the Seventh Doctor in Part 2, is the benchmark for Dark Gallifrey, but maybe The Meddling Monks is right below it in the rankings. It was so unconventional, so unexpected, so different. But it's not just that it's different why I recommend it, it's just genuinely exceptional audio dramas. Like, it's about 2.5 hours of like 9 or 10 out of 10 audio, and then the last half hour just sort of brings it back to earth a little bit, but it's still really effective stuff. Really, really, really strong audio. I'm really, really hoping that the pattern of subjective good, bad breaks for the next one, because we've got The Decayed Master next with Geoffrey Beevers, and it's written by Laura Mooney and Stuart Pringle, and I love those writers, so I hope that these two, of all writers, are able to break the cycle. So we've got The Decayed Master parts 1, 2, and 3. This is the next Dark Gallifrey series, but I'm going to wait until part 3 drops before I review them all, and I'm glad that I've taken that approach to reviewing Dark Gallifrey, reviewing them as a totality, as 3 hours of audio as opposed to piece by piece, because I think it's in totality where you can see the bigger picture of what these box sets and these stories are trying to go for, and I think that's, in my opinion, the best way to approach it. Oh yeah, and notice how I've spent, 10-15 minutes talking about the Meddling Monks, and I've not once mentioned Dark Gallifrey, as in, like, what is Dark Gallifrey in universe? I don't have a bloody clue. I kind of feel like what Dark Gallifrey is going for is that, yeah, we've got this subtle link tying these box sets together, but really it's just an excuse to tell stories. We've got another Missy story, we've got another Eric Roberts Master story, etc. And we just have this Dark Gallifrey branding underpinning it. Like, I think that's a bit of a wasted opportunity, but as long as the stories themselves on their own keep delivering, then I'm happy to listen to them. Like, I would still, regardless of its place within the broader Dark Gallifrey story, I'd recommend Dark Gallifrey Missy to anyone. Like, that's like a 10 out of 10 series there, so just, yeah, check that out. And I'd recommend this to anyone even if you don't know what a Scooby-Doo or Gallifrey is. Like, you know, I don't know what it is, and I'm still really engaging with it. So that's my review of Dark Gallifrey, The Meddling Monks by John Dorney. I really want to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I want to know if you, like, listened to it and had no idea what you were getting in for with it. You know, I really want to hear your perspectives on this. But let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, hype the video if you can as well. Subscribe for more Doctor Who Big Finish reviews. And folks, I'll see you all next time.
He's a monk, she's a nun, and together they make fun. Time meddling, scattering japes, score settling, getting in scrapes.